Hey y'all, this is Trish, and I'm just getting set up here, making sure that everything is okay. This is a live show, the Trish Causey Show. It's a special day and special time, and basically what I'm doing is I'm kind of stalling while people are waiting to get on. So let me just make sure we all look in frame here. So if you're watching this on the replay, just go ahead and maybe skip ahead a few minutes. And what I'm going to do right now is just leave a message on Facebook and on Twitter that the show is started. And so if you are a part of the class, go ahead and leave a comment. I'm going to open up my YouTube right now, in fact, so that I can see your comments. And you can set your chat to either the top chat messages or all of them. You can see all the comments left. And that is true for the replay as well. So it is not quite 6. It is 5:55. And so it's not quite 6 o'clock. So let me just leave a message on my Twitter saying that we have started. And you can go ahead, go to the bathroom, get a drink, chill out, and we'll be going for real in just a few minutes. I've just opened up the video so that people can find it here. So give me just a second. And go ahead and say hi down in the chat. Go ahead and tell me who you are. And hey, Paganism Club. I'm Trish. Nice to meet you, American Public University. Yeah, so this is really cool. You know, I'm reformatting my show, and I'm trying to get further away from the political crap and really focus on the things that are actually important, which would be awakening. My whole vibe is arts, activism, and awakening, and so that's what I'm focusing on more now. It's also why I've been on hiatus for a while, because I really just had to comfortable with ditching all the bullshit, you know? You know, that's one of the laws of nature, right? You don't take what you don't need, and you don't waste what you take. Well, I don't need political bullshit, so bye. So, okay, so let me leave this on Twitter. Talking about paganism. Ooh, preach on, yeah. All right, so, okay, so, and Twitter's doing weird things with addresses now. Like, you don't put the http://www stuff anymore, and so whatever. All right, can I spell this? Can I spell my own damn name? All right, here we go. Witchy woman. Wicca, which I am not, but whatever. Maybe people will see it. Did I spell that right? We shall know soon. Okay. Yeah, so again, I'm just kind of stalling just a little bit till we get to the 6 p.m. mark. But go ahead and leave questions. Let me open up. Okay, that was that. Let me go ahead and open up. Can I see my live show on my own feed? It's just easier to see your comments and everything on my, there we go. Okay. It's just easier to see it on my laptop as opposed to, let me mute this to see it because I got a big mouth. All right, so top chat. Okay, so top chat, you're going to see, I guess, YouTube picks and chooses what's important. So go ahead and click on live chat, and that way you can see all the comments that are left. So, and so in honor of all this pagan natural stuff, I didn't even brush my hair today. This is my hair. And so anyway, let's see, we've got one more minute. So go ahead and say hi in the chat if you're a part of the club. And we're going to get in just a second. Again, it's not quite 6 o'clock. I just wanted to go ahead and get this started because I know y'all have a time limit. And how long is your class? Like an hour? Are we here for half an hour? An hour? Y'all tell me what we're doing, because I could talk about this a long, long time. I just realized I don't have my main light on. So I don't know. Can you see? Do I look okay? Do I look weird? Is it too dark? Is it is it Kaya? Or do you pronounce the J? Tigress. Awesome. Half an hour. Oh, ooh. That's not enough time. Cover paganism in half an hour. Oh well. We will endeavor. All right. So for those of you who are new to paganism, or you've never heard of it, or maybe you've only heard horrible things like, oh, pagans kill babies and pagans are going to hell and other, Christian bullshit like that. The word pagan comes from the Latin word paganus, which means country dweller. And so pagans literally actually were the country dwellers who were infringing upon Roman Empire's spread of their empire, right? So Romans were not pagan. Greeks were not pagan. Pagans were literally the indigenous people of Europe. This is probably why a lot of pagans are drawn to American Indian culture, or maybe they're drawn to indigenous African culture, or even pre-Vedic Indian culture, like India, dot, not feather, culture. But pagan means country dweller. And the Romans hated the pagans. Okay, so were people who were the indigenous tribes, the indigenous clans who lived close to the earth, obviously. But when we talk about paganism, and I come to paganism as someone who never felt comfortable with Christianity. I was forced to be Catholic as a kid and through school. I went to Catholic schools. If you know me, that probably explains a lot. But I never, ever felt comfortable with Christianity, ever. Mainly because I saw all of the double standards, the hypocrisy, the lies of Christianity and the Christian church, particularly the Catholic Church. But I'm from Mississippi, so I saw those same hypocrisies in the Southern Baptist and other denominations. But anyway, so as someone on this path of paganism, and I do call myself a pagan witch, but I do tend to say pagan more often now. But it's really, I don't know, it's just a journey thing. It's not that I mean, I still love the word witch and I still use it, but I don't know, it's just one of those things where I do tend to go more toward pagan because I don't resonate with a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing in the rise of modern witchcraft. And even in paganism, I find this so much emphasis on stuff and paraphernalia that I've just turned more inward rather than outward, But the history of paganism is really quite fascinating. And I know that y'all have already covered some of that. And for those of you who are just joining us, I see people jumping on. If you're a regular viewer and you're wondering what the heck is going on, I have asked to be a guest speaker for the Paganism Club at the American Public University. And so that's what this show is. I'm just talking about my perspective of paganism. And Brian wanted me to talk about being a modern woman or a woman in modern paganism. Well, I'm a history nerd. And so in terms of, hey, Morgan. And in terms of paganism, for me, I'm very connected to my Irish history and my Irish heritage and Scottish heritage. And here's another point that I like to make is that the Irish and the Scottish are not Celtic. They've never been Celtic. And I was saying this 20 years ago, and research from archaeological find in 2015 has now proven it through scientific DNA and genetics that the Irish and the Scottish are not Celtic. The word Celt comes from the Greek word keltoi, which means stranger. And so this is what the Greeks called the people they encountered. Well, they never encountered the Irish or the Scottish. So that alone means that the Irish and Scottish were never Celtic. They were never strangers to the Greek. The Greeks never knew about them. But then the legacy of Celt is that the Celts were mainland. So if you are Italian, maybe you're an Italian Strega witch, you could be considered pagan and Celt if you wanted to do that. But hey, y'all. But paganism for me is something that was inherent to me. Being a witch was inherent to me. It is something that I always knew. Like, I always preferred playing, you know, in my backyard with the snakes and the frogs and the toads and the salamanders and making mud pies. And, you know, when you make mud pies and you've got the dirt and the water and you're making the mud and up pops a crawdad because he was down in the earth, you know, you messed up his little house. It's just so natural to me. But of course, being raised in the American South, that kind of thing was definitely not promoted. It's still not promoted. So I was actually 17 and I had just graduated Catholic school when, and my mother wanted me to go to Catholic college. No. But I met a guy named Mark. He was a principal dancer in San Francisco Ballet, and he let me read some of his poetry, and it was about his bear totem. And I said, I resonate with this. I know this, but I'm not Indian. And he said, well, who are you? You know, where do your people come from? And that got me on the journey to finding and researching my Irish heritage and the indigenous spirituality of Ireland and Scotland. My mother's family is Scottish, my father's is Irish. And so knowing about my heritage in that way, and that I'm not a freak, and that, you know, that this is, to this day, this is really difficult for people to even acknowledge because of the tentacles of Christianity within Irish and Scottish culture. So, hey, Miles. And so anyway, so that's just been a part of my journey, is researching the indigenous culture, the indigenous spirituality of Ireland and Scotland. And this became a problem when I wanted formal training as a witch. I wanted to know more, because I mean, I love being a witch, and I love the whole witchy thing. I don't like how witches are portrayed in, you know, TV sometimes, and certainly most movies. Like when the movie The Craft came out, oh, I hated that movie. That was awful. My coven, we went to see it as a group. We were not enthused, if I can use the royal we. It's just been, for me, it's been about balancing. I'm a Libra. So it's been about balancing the historical, what we know from documented history, which is very difficult because back then, of course, a lot of it was oral tradition. But history, the spiritual path as you feel it, combined with scientific research, genetics, DNA, and just archaeological finds. So my personal paganism is about what I felt that was normal and natural to me as a child. What I instinctively, truly instinctively and intuitively was drawn to as a child, and having to unlearn and having to really break free from the conditioning of being raised in such a staunch Christian, Catholic, religiously oppressive culture that is America, the American South, Mississippi in particular, you know. So I think for a lot of pagans, I think we're drawn to this naturally, but I also feel that we have a lot of unlearning that we have to do. And whether it's unlearning that if you're Irish, you're not Celtic, you know. And I sing Irish music. Sorry, I sing Irish music, and I'm actually prepping an Irish album. And Oh, Mormon in Georgia. Good gravy. Let me get a sip. Throat chakra, y'all. So, it's about undoing a lot, essentially. So, I mean, I have a lot of things that I could talk about. Gosh, I don't know what's going on. I'm speaking the truth, or my truth anyway. All right, so if you want to ask questions, feel free, or I can just ramble. I'm good at that. My background's in the theater. You know, and that's true. Okay, can you tell me how to say your name? Is it Keja, Kaya, Kaya? I want to say your name correctly because I think it's great. Whatever it is, it looks. And I think that is a very important point that you are making there, is because there was not a Celtic civilization, because the word Celt is the word that's the label that the Greeks applied to the strangers they encountered. That is not the name of the actual people. The Gallic tribes, the Germanic, Teutonic tribes, the whatever tribes, they had their own names. It's just like when you look at the tribes in Scotland. The Scotties came from Ireland in the 5th century. They got pissy, you know, Ireland kicked them out, or they got pissy and got mad at Ireland, whatever. They left Ireland. The band of Scotties left Ireland, went across the water just a little bit, and they landed up there in what we now call the land of the Scots, or Scotland. But there were people who were already there, and we know those people as the Picts, P-I-C-T-S. But that word Pict comes from the Latin word for paint, and it's because they painted themselves with blue woad. I mean, that's what we think about. You think of Braveheart, you know, and painting yourself all blue, or Boudica, painting yourself blue. That's what the Romans, like, oh, they paint themselves. We're calling them the Picts. So we don't know what they called themselves, but we know what the Romans called them. And so we call them by that name. And the same thing exactly with the Celts. You know, it's like, that wasn't the name for anybody. It's like the Sioux, the Lakota, Dakota, Nakota, that now live primarily in what's known as North Dakota and South Dakota, or Dakota. Their name is not the Sioux. They are 7 tribes, and they're Dakota, Lakota, Nakota. Sioux actually comes from Nadawa Sioux, which means rattlesnake, and it was an insult that their enemies called them, and yet they are officially known as the Great Sioux Nation. So they're known by a name that was a derogatory term put on them by their enemy. They're not the Sioux. There are 7, you know, different bands within that culture. So again, there's a lot of unlearning, and you know, this is a big part of paganism, activism, in my opinion, is kind of setting the record straight. You know what I mean? So they had similar cultures across the tribes. Yeah. Okay. And so if you're just tuning in, go ahead and open up the live chat? Is that what it's called? Yeah, the live chat. You're going to see all the comments. Yeah. So go ahead and leave a comment about what you want to talk about. What are you interested in? Because I'll talk a little bit more, because Brian asked me to talk about what it means to me as a modern pagan. For me, as you know, I'm a woman, I'm an activist, I'm a feminist, I'm an intactivist, I am pagan, I'm a witch, I'm all of these different things. And so it is important to me to honor who I am naturally. You know, like I said, this is me. I didn't even brush my hair today. You know, that this is about living a life that is true to me. And one of the things that I went through several years ago is I stopped buying the stuff, buying books, because I was tired of the Llewellyn books that were just regurgitating the same information. It was literally like they just put different labels on stuff, but it was the same information regardless of what book you read. I stopped buying the tools, like, you know, how many anthems do you really need? How many wands do you really need? How many chalices do you really need? How many pinnacle patens do you really need? You know, so it's like I stopped buying the stuff, and I went for 5 years without buying anything to see how much of what I did as a witch was reliant upon the stuff. Because I remember as a kid being raised in the Catholic Church, and there would women would volunteer to clean the brass things that go on the candles, and they would clean all the brass of the chalice and the paten and all that stuff. And so it's like there was such an emphasis on the physical material, and that is not what paganism is to me, because we're about the earth. We're about our connection to the earth, but more importantly, the energy of the earth and how it relates to the energy of the universe. How the universe is the macrocosm, we are the microcosm, as above, so below, right? And so buying all the books, certainly, you know, it supports the writers, great. It supports artists, great, wonderful. But where I was in that time, I didn't feel the need to buy stuff. And not even candles, you know, and candle magic is looked down on as a low magic, particularly by Wiccans in the higher degrees, or people who are just into ceremonial magic. But candle magic can be very powerful because it's all 4 of the elements represented in one. And, you know, one of the things I had to realize is that I don't even need a candle. If I'm going to do a ritual and I need earth, air, fire, and water, I have all of that within myself. I don't need a freaking candle for that. You know, this carbon-based meat suit is earth, right? And then air, obviously, I got a big mouth. I talk a lot, got plenty of air. Fire, what do you think your heartbeat is? It's an electrical current. We are electricity. We are energy. So I've got fire, and I'm a fire spirit, so got that covered. And then water, we're what, 70% water? So I am magic. I don't need stuff. I don't need paraphernalia to be pagan. I don't need stuff to be a witch. And I think that's one of the reasons why, you know, that in talking about witchcraft and being witchy, which I love, it's just that there's such a focus on how to look like a witch. I'm like, guess what? This is what a witch looks like. Yeehaw! Oh, I disappoint you because I'm not wearing a pointy hat, because I don't dye my hair black. However a person chooses to express themselves as a pagan or a witch, that's their own expression. But then to say that I'm not a witch because I don't meet your definition or your stereotype, I'm like, stop watching movies, okay? Most of that's bullshit. Anyway. So I see some great comments coming up. That's the problem with neo-paganism across the board. Yes, indeed. And, oh, okay, that one's going away. So I'm going to read it here on my laptop. Okay, people act as if it's the cool thing to do or will piss off their parents the most. Right, it's acting out. Not different for this druid. Well, and talking about acting out, I do think that some of that is acting out. I mean, we all go through that. I think most of us go through that, you know, except that we do it to certain degrees. Like being raised in people just knowing that I wasn't Christian was enough to possibly get me hurt in some areas. I lost a job because I'm not Christian. Yeah, that still happens. So there comes a time where you become comfortable in your own skin. And, you know, I'm also a tantrika. And so in doing Tantra means literally, the literal meaning of Tantra is an instrument of expansion or a tool for expansion. And so I find a lot of correlations with paganism that I do with Tantra, because Tantra is, it's pre-Vedic, it's a goddess-based, so it's very similar in many ways, but it is a tradition that's come down generation by generation, the way modern paganism has had to be reconstructed, or we're piecing it together, or It's just a reconstructed spiritual path or religion for people. It has not been passed down. If you look at the stories that were written down, starting with the monks in the 8th century, you can see how they were absolutely putting the Christian stamp on things. But the indigenous Irish and Scottish, it came through. You know, the fae, the fairies, that's still very prevalent in Irish culture and Scottish culture. But it's, you gotta get through all the bullshit of Christian indoctrination, right? So anyway, cool to see some druids on here. Again, I'm pretty much a loner, but one of the main reasons why I left the coven that I was in, they were American eclectic. And the teachers were actually pretty groovy, but what I wanted was Irish. I wanted Scottish. I wanted to be close to my culture. And they couldn't give that to me because that was not their training. They were actually, it was a married couple, and the chick was actually a 3rd degree initiate in a Wiccan coven out of New Orleans. And so she really wanted that whole initiation process and learn this and learn that and be here. And there were just a lot of things I didn't like. And Wicca is a religion. Paganism is a spirituality. And that's another thing people don't understand. Wicca, hey, Christina. You know, Wicca is a religion. I actually did a video on the difference between spirituality and religion. Because religion, if you take the word apart, the prefix is Latin, it means again. Lig is from the Latin ligere, which means to tie or bind. And ion, that's just how we make nouns in English. So religion is to tie or bind again and again and again and again. And that's why religion has sacraments. It's why it has like the Stations of the Cross, or, you know, say the Hail Marys and, you know, the Rosary and this, that, and the other. It's that these are practices and exercises that continually tie you and bind you back to the dogma of the church. And specifically, this is important for the church because they want your 10% tithe of your income. Because without you, they can't make money. See, this is why the Jews and the Gypsies were hated in Europe. The Gypsies especially. The Jews, the Jewish people at least, they made roots in the community. But the Gypsies didn't. So the Gypsies were actually hated even more than the Jews. And the Gypsies got kicked out everywhere they went across Europe until they, you know, landed in England. It's like, okay, we're here. It's the Atlantic Ocean. It's because the Gypsies were, first of all, they were not Christian, so they were not tithing to the church, and they were nomadic, so they were not tied to the land, which means they were not working for a landed noble, which means that the noble couldn't collect taxes from them. So here you have the ultimate freedom, that tithing to a religion, you're not paying taxes, you are just free. And they certainly couldn't have that. And that's why they got kicked out of everywhere they went. So for the church, I think the main problem with religion came when 325, when Christianity became the official state religion of Rome. Because you went from this religious philosophy of Jesus is your savior, which, okay, that's fine if that works for you. But then Christianity had the backing of the full force and might of the Roman military. And so now it's convert to Jesus or die. And that certainly doesn't fit any paradigm of what Jesus taught. And Jesus's main teachings were Buddhist, practically verbatim from the teaching of Siddhartha anyway, you know. So I'm off on a rant, sorry. But when you start to weed through the bullshit of religion, if you can think for yourself, you don't want religion. And I think that's why a lot of people have left official organized religion. I think that's why there are a lot of people who are now identifying as either agnostic or atheists. And I think there are more atheists who are actually agnostic, but there's no great agnostic movement the way there's a great atheist movement right now. And so I know agnostics who will line up with the atheists simply because they don't want to line up with the Christians. Because nowadays it's either you're Christian or you're atheist. I'm like, hello? What are we, chopped liver? You know, it's like that, you know, in that scenario, the agnostics are kind of like the bisexuals in the LGBT movement. We're not really wanted. Nobody cares about us, but we're good when they want to count numbers. So anyway, okay, we have more comments. This is what I do not like about organized religions. Once they are organized, they inevitably become more political and less spiritual. Exactly. Exactly. That's why there's a difference. I see a difference between spirituality and religion. Religion is a man-made dogma. And then they have all these guilt trips you can go on. And it's like, okay, well, either you're with us or you're not. Either you're with us or you're against us. You're one of us or you're one of them. And obviously one of them is going to be our enemy ultimately, you know, and it just plays into the hands of this either or polarized dynamic, which is not natural, not normal, and certainly not healthy. But it sells war. That's profitable. You know, I mean, the Catholic Church is not going to go on a physical war type crusade the way it did in 1096. I mean, they're just not going to do that anymore. And they can't technically burn us at the stake by the hundreds of thousands like they did, you know, for several hundred years. But the bullshit is indoctrinated that it makes your life a living hell. If you believe in hell, it makes your life a living hell when you are living your truth as a pagan. Because it's okay for Christians to live their truth. But you try being not Christian in this society, it is difficult. Especially being open. And, you know, like being a ginger. Being a ginger, people look at me like I'm going to put the whammy on them or something. Where I am right now, I'm in Los Angeles. And so I'm around a lot of Hispanic, Latino, and Asian people in this area. Not a lot of white people at all. But then you walk in, fair skin that doesn't tan, you know, freckles, weird eye color. And I get a lot of strange looks because, you know, as a ginger, it's like whenever you see a traditional painting or kind of iconography of people that the church deems a witch or not a good person, they're always a redhead. Mary Magdalene, whom the church said was a prostitute, which she was not, she's always portrayed as a redhead. Judas in the Last Supper, he was a redhead. Joan of Arc is portrayed as a redhead. So all the people that the church doesn't like, redhead. So anyway, ginger steal souls. And buddy, I got them all right here. I know the names of every one of them. So fuck that, right? Brian's going to be so upset that he missed this. So he can say, Trish, you can't say that. We're supposed to be talking about paganism. And what we're talking about is being natural. And we're talking about our freckles are natural. But it's so fun. I'm reading comments. Now, being pagan is half ginger. You're a half ginger. Aw. Your skin of a ginger, but you got stuck with brown hair. Aw, I bet you're beautiful. You know, and this is another thing too, that as a pagan, I mean, okay, I put some eyeliner and mascara on, but normally I don't wear makeup. You can look through my Instagram. I don't wear makeup on a daily basis, mainly because I do makeup for like stage or performing, right? So I don't like wearing makeup in just daily life. That's just me. But it's like, I don't feel the need to dye my skin orange, you know. I don't feel the need for a spray tan. I don't feel the need for, well, I don't need breast implants anyway, but I mean, you know, that there's at some point as a pagan, I think it helps you become in tune with who you are and what is natural. One of the great things about pagan men, and I'll just say this, is pagan witchy men is that they appreciate women who got some bulk on their body. You know, you don't have to have that feeling of, gee, I wish I were a size 4. I'll never be a size 4. That's just not going to happen. This is all Irish and Scottish, and a size 4 isn't going to happen. I'm very upset that I'm not 5'10". I will say that. I should have been 5'10", but I'm not 5'10" either. But anyway, you know, so it's interesting how being pagan informs a lot of decisions too, because if you're pagan and you believe that what's natural is good and what nature provides is good, then if you have a son, you're not going to circumcise because the foreskin is natural. Your son is born with foreskin, and the foreskin is there for a reason, and so you don't circumcise. You probably would never think of circumcising a girl because that's female genital mutilation, and that's not natural. So it's really interesting how once you're okay with what is natural and what is normal, and your connection to the earth and your connection to the universe and what is and what's supposed to be, then it actually informs a lot of your decisions outside of paganism proper. Well, if you have another son, I hope that you will leave him intact. You can only know what you know at the time. Mwah. Okay? But this is, it really is about being true to yourself. And I think education is really, really, really important. Education, learning the historical side of paganism, seeing how paganism is, how paganism has really come up since the 1960s and all the activist movements of the 60s. Modern paganism, as we know it, really is an offshoot of that resurgence, the renaissance of paganism, neo-paganism. It really came from the activist movements of the 60s. You have the women's movement, you have the American Indian movement, you have the eco movement. And so I think you can thank a lot of those activists and those activist movements for the paganism and the surge of paganism that we see today. I just wish that we could get more support and more understanding from the atheists and the agnostics. I am so sick of atheists looking at me as a pagan witch and just thinking that I'm lost in woo-woo land because they don't understand. You know, the word ignorant, the prefix ignorant means not, nor means comes from nous, which means knowledge. So if you are ignorant, it means you just don't know. Okay? But once you know, and you still make decisions that are contrary to basic information that you now have, once you make a decision contrary to your educated, level, your educated platform, it's like, that's not ignorant, that's stupidity. And so I wish the atheists would listen. I wish the agnostics are actually more open. Anani Mouse, you're not pagan, but what are you? Namaste. Namaste back to you. All that is warm and fuzzy within my soul and being honors all that's warm and fuzzy within yours. That's what namaste means. Loose translation. So anyway, so does anybody have any questions? We're at 6:33. And so I think I've exhausted whatever Brian wanted me to specifically talk about, but I'm certainly open to questions. If anybody has any questions, my opinions on anything, my experience, because I did go through the coven experience and dropped out of that because it wasn't for me. I was self-initiated back in midsummer of '96. And so I've been, oh, good God, 22 years specifically, since my, has it been that long? Wow. So Anonymous, I'm interested in hearing what your path is. So, oh, I see all these red beards. I'm looking through the comments. Christina says, you would love Iowa. I feel a great connection with nature with our 40 acres of woods. Let me tell you, nature is what I have missed being out here in California, LA. I'm from Mississippi. I'm used to trees and the woods. I'm from the Gulf Coast, so there's the beach. I mean, you talk about powerful low magic, and I hate that term low magic, but you know, powerful magic can be found at the beach. You're standing in the sand, you've got the water coming up to you, you're under the sun or maybe the light of the moon, which is the sun's reflection, you know, and then you say the words and you can feel this, you can smell the salt in the air, you feel the breeze. I mean, that's all four elements right there, you know, and then once all those four come together, of course, you have the fifth element of spirit. So I don't think I've ever been through Iowa. I've been through Indiana. I drove up from Mississippi to Louisville and then Louisville to Chicago. So I went through a lot of cornfields, you know, and Tennessee and Kentucky are beautiful. Just the trees and the mountains, you know. I have a friend who told me recently that I should look into moving to Portland. And I'm looking at Portland, maybe Denver. I just need to be around trees, and California is just not doing it for me. it's not doing it. So let's see. Christina says, I've always wondered about some of this stuff associated with paganism, like tarot cards, and Ouija boards. I personally don't do the Ouija board and never have, mainly because when you're asking for spirits to join you, you're just putting it out there for any spirit. And it could be if you believe in spirits. So this is if this doesn't resonate with you, don't worry about it. But Ouija boards I've just seen people get into a lot of trouble with that because you're just asking for any old spirit to join you. So I don't really like Ouija boards. The tarot, actually, I'm getting in. I've always done tarot since I've been about 15 years old. I have ordered 3 new decks. They're finally arriving. I just ordered, Miles says, I leave the spirits alone. Yeah, like, you know, they earned their freedom. Why the hell are you bothering them? I just got this deck, if you can see that. This is a Sex Magic tarot deck. And I've actually decided I'm going to design my own tarot deck. And so tarot, I like tarot because it allows you to, it gives you permission to see and know what you already know. Like most of the time when people are asking questions of the tarot, they already know what they need to do. They already know the answer, but they're afraid of the answer, or they're afraid of, we didn't think you said gremlin deck. That's okay. We knew it was German. But the tarot is a tool. Like Tantra is a tool. Tantra is it's an instrument of expansion. Tarot can help you in unlocking the unconscious, and that's why you have the major arcana, the minor arcana. The major arcana is the journey of the soul through the 22 major archetypes. And then you have the minor arcana, from which we get the modern playing cards, which is why a lot of Christians don't like it, because of all the gambling aspect of tarot. But I love the tarot, and I think it's great when they actually get the tarot decks correct, because swords are fire and wands, spears are air. And I'm about to do a whole video on tarot because this is just infuriating me. But anyway, we won't talk about that. So I don't know, Christina, if that helped or if that answered your question. Okay, let's see. Morgan says, thank you for speaking with the group about paganism. I'm on the Gulf Coast now in Galveston. Oh, wow. Hey there, Morgan in Galveston. Yeah, I'm from the Mississippi Gulf Coast. I have driven to Texas many times in my lifetime. I haven't been to Galveston in a while, though. I think it was when I was a kid, we just made a tour of Galveston, Corpus Christi, San Antonio. We went up to Temple and Fredericksburg. I mean, we literally drove days. And we were still in Texas. Oh my God. Okay. Miles says, funny, a lot of the points made tonight were brought up in a conversation I had with a coworker. That's synchronicity. You know, and I think there are a lot of people who are on the path. They are looking for something because they are not fulfilled. Going through all the sacraments and the rosaries and the Stations of the Cross and the whatevers, that it is not fulfilling. It is not fulfilling for people like us. You know, just saying prayers, rote prayers, regurgitating the bullshit of dogma, that does not resonate with us. You know, most of us are free thinkers and we're kind of uppity. And, you know, society doesn't really like us anyway. That's okay. But, you know, if you've ever felt yourself as kind of a lone wolf or just, you know, not fitting in because you think too much, you can see the bullshit and you're not afraid to call it bullshit when you see it, calling a spade a spade. It's really difficult living in this culture at times. And that can be true for anything in any way that you feel different. Maybe you're gay, maybe you're trans, maybe you have a congenital birth defect and you were born without one of your legs. You're different somehow and you just don't fit in. And society lets you know you're weird. Society goes out of its way to say, yeah, you're a freak. You know, we don't want you. And so I think that's where a lot of pagans and witches, that we're very strong people. And it takes a strength to be willing to be ostracized by your family, to lose your job because you're not Christian. It takes an inner strength to be different. When there is comfort and security in sameness. You know what I mean? Embrace the weirdness. There you go. See, I grew up in musical theater. I grew up wanting to be on Broadway, which is about as unnatural and as far away from, you know, what is nature and natural as you can get. You know, the lights and the glam and whatever, and the makeup and the wigs and the hair and the costumes and the sets. And I still love all of that. It's fun. But when I think about what I really want, I want to live in a cottage in the woods. And here's a little exercise I did. And this is a kind of a magic thing, if you want to think of it like that. Just as a storming exercise or whatever. One day I think this was before Pinterest. And I was trying to design my dream home. And I work from home. And so in my dream home, I had, you have your living room, your kitchen, your master bedroom, whatever. And it was like, well, no, the living room needs to be like this because I'm going to have people over, right? And then I need a dining room. Well, it can't just be a dining room because that's just a waste of time and space. So, it can be a conference room. Just use the dining table for a conference room. Well, if I'm going to have this and I'm going to have that, I'm going to have meetings at my house because I work from home. Well, then I need to have a grand piano, a Steinway, of course. And I need to have this grand piano so that we can have rehearsal. Okay, well, if we're going to have rehearsal and we're going to have meetings here, well, then I need to have the setup so I can do recording. So now I need a recording booth. That's going to be lots of outlets. And so I was designing a house that was for work, not a home. I was designing a house that was for literally so many other people and not myself. So I said, what do I actually need? And so by the process of elimination, I just started Xing out rooms. And what I came down to was what I need in a home, not a house, in a home. I need one room that has a bed, maybe a kitchenette, maybe a sofa, but one room and a bathroom. That's all I need. And I need that to be in the woods. I need that to be near a river. I need deer coming up and eating the azaleas. And I need squirrels that I can feed pecans on the back porch. That's what I need. I don't need anything else. you know, and I don't understand that. They don't understand why you don't want the McMansion. They don't understand why you want to live so close to the earth. Oh, you have that in Iowa. I've never been. Well, Christina, we're going to have to arrange for me to come to Iowa. So anyway, so that was a type of magic. It was a type of magic of awakening and awareness. I think that's a big part of paganism, is being aware. Just like in Tantra. I know I keep going back to Tantra. Tantra is about being in the now. It's about not judging, allowing. Whatever happens, happens. Observe it. Don't judge it, but allow it. You know, let it be a lesson. But you don't have to be attached to the lesson itself. Just learn from it. And I think there's a lot of that in paganism. So that when you remember that paganism, paganus, is about being a country dweller. It's about being close to the earth, the cycles of the earth, the energies of the earth that represent the energies of the universe. I am a microcosm to the macrocosm of the earth. The earth is a microcosm of the universe. When you're in tune with that, you don't want to be in the big cities. That fake energy of lights and signs and just the noise of like Times Square. I remember the first time I took my daughter to New York. She hated it. She's a Cancer and she's an empath. And so she hated Times Square. And I'm like, but it's Broadway. How can you not love Broadway? But I understand that from her perspective. She comes to it very naturally, although she says she's atheist and she's, you know, going through her own journey. Her own label is hers. I'm not in that. But it is rather interesting that a lot of pagans, even if you don't know the true meaning of pagan, we are drawn to earth and the woods. You could be drawn to the mountains. If you're from the Southwest, you might be drawn to the landscape of the Southwest. I happen to be Irish, Scottish, and so I'm drawn to green, earthy woods, trees, deer because of Cernunnos. He's my dude. And, I'm breed, obviously, Bridget. I'm drawn to, wolves, bears, ravens, those kinds of very earthy, woodsy things. Also because of dreams I've had, so that's another thing. We haven't even talked about dreams and that kind of thing. But let me look at some of the embrace the weirdness. We love that. Corpus hometown. Christina says, I was first introduced to Wicca when I met a woman at Black Hawk School in Pennsylvania at Fort Indiantown Gap. That's a thing? Okay. Fort Indiantown Gap. It made so much sense when she described it to me. And that's true. Look, your own. When something hits you and it is right for you, wolf spirit, woohoo, awesome. It's like that's what happened when I read Mark's poetry. Mark is American Indian. When I read Mark's poetry, it's like it hit me and it just enveloped me. I knew it was right. I knew that this is me. But I also knew I'm Irish and Scottish and I am not American Indian. And one of the things we haven't even gotten to talk about, because there's so many things we could talk about, and that is cultural misappropriation that was really big in the 90s and maybe even the early 2000s of, like, say, white Americans, European Americans, commandeering American Indian spiritual signs and symbols and totems and feathers and headdresses and this, that, and the other, when you don't need to. You have all of that in your European history. There are like 27 species of eagle native to Ireland. I don't need to take the eagle feathers from, Western Plains Indians, because I wearing eagle feathers in a certain way, that's an Irish tradition, wolf spirit. The wolves were pretty much killed to extinction in the 1780s in Ireland, but the wolf spirit is still very palpable. For instance, the Irish werewolf is a very different mythology than the typical werewolf. The Irish werewolf was actually very helpful. They, like wolves, they mate in pairs, and they were very helpful for humans. They weren't like this out to get humans thing, you know. But you know it when somebody says it. You know it's for you. So many comments. She also took me to a really neat town called New Hope, Pennsylvania. I've never been to Pennsylvania, but I'm looking to go to Pennsylvania in November for a Book Babies self-published authors thing. That's in Philadelphia. So I'm going to do a little map questing. Map quest is still a thing. And I'm going to check it out and see. Maybe New Hope will be close enough that I can check it out. We have all of that in Iowa. And Miles says, grew up in the backwoods of southern Georgia. Georgia, Georgia, a song of you. Do I do runes? I haven't done runes in a long, long time. And to be honest, I never really got into them because I was so busy trying to learn Om, you know, the language of the Irish, the written language of the Irish, the ancient language, that it was just too much information for me to try and learn runes as well as learning Om. And I haven't even done that in a long time. But I am very interested because, you know, as someone of Irish and Scottish descent, I am more than likely, I've got a good dose of Norse blood because of the Viking raids in the 8th and 9th centuries. I will be getting my DNA done soon. And so I hope to know exactly where my, you know, background is. But no, runes, if you do runes, you know, and I would love to connect with all y'all on Facebook. We're at 52 minutes into this, so I would love to connect with all of you on Facebook. You can find me, friend me, etc. In case you have to jump off of this. So no to the runes only because it was way too much information for me to absorb at the time. Miles says, I hated being in Times Square. You're stuck there for 10 days for work. I'm sorry. Next time, send me. And Kaya says, I'm so sorry. Owls and tigers for me, that's like my daughter. My daughter was born in the year of the tiger. And so she loves tigers and she loves owls. She's really gotten to owls. Miles is a wolf spirit. I'm a wolf spirit. I've got my my little deer. I keep my statues here. Let me see. I'm traveling around the country right now, so most of my stuff is in storage in Mississippi. I'm sure if you're pagan, I'm sure you've seen this. This is the cold cast bronze Danu. She's got the cauldron. You see the serpent of knowledge down here. So I don't know if you've ever seen the back. It's absolutely gorgeous. Trees, because we have to have trees. We pagans, we need trees. And here's another statue. This is actually Babaji, but I use him for, you know, Irish purposes. For me, he is like the ultimate identification of masculinity and what I hope for in twin flame. I'm really getting into twin flames right now because I'm on that path. Hopefully coming into union with my twin flame soon. And so then here, this is Ellen. You can see she's got her little antlers, like Carnunos has antlers. I brought some of these with me. You know what we were talking about earlier? Oh, here's a card. I just saw this card at the store, and I had to get it. I just had to. I just thought it was awesome. So, last weekend, May 5th through 6th, I was in San Francisco for a conference. I was a guest speaker. And within 3 hours of being in San Francisco, my car was stolen. And I had taken out most my personal stuff, but I didn't get everything. And so in the past week and a half, I've had to deal with realizing the personal things that were in my car that I've now lost forever, and they have emotional value. And one of the lessons of paganism is that you don't need the material stuff, right? So I'm very grateful that I didn't have my statues in my car, but it's for people who are new to paganism. If you are still in that phase of getting stuff because you want the cool stuff, I understand that, but you don't need it. Your connection is to the earth, not to the stuff. That's just a side note. How do you know what spirit you are? Great question. And basically, no one can tell you that. No one can tell you what your spirit is. You can meditate on this. You can look at, just see what animals you're drawn to. See, just like look through go to the library. I think they still exist, right? Libraries still exist. Go there and look through a book of animals, an encyclopedia of animals, and just see what resonates with you. Or through the woods, as you're walking down the street, what calls to you? When you hear birds, like most of the time, I think birds are really annoying, and I wish they would just be quiet. But when I hear crows, when I hear ravens, I love that sound. You know, I'm not a cat person. I don't like cats. Like, they're just, you know, picky, and they're annoying. And I don't know if that's because maybe cats are just too like me, you know. I much prefer dogs, horses, animals that I like, deer, bear. I know you're drawn to all of them. I mean, ultimately, we're all drawn to all animals because we love animals. We're pagan. But you will notice some are, see which ones come to you a lot. And they're all delicious. Mild. You know, that's how I justify being a meat eater, is that, you know, that's just a part of the process. You're born, you live, you die. Now, I do eat, I try to eat, you know, grass-fed and free range and, you know, organic and all that. So I want them to have a good life, but at the end of the day, I do want my bacon. That's just that. But in terms of your spirit animals, see what animal that you see more often, or that you're drawn to more often, that you think of more often. Are there animals in your dreams? Are there animals that when you think of, like, or when you see or think of one animal, is your first instinct to think, oh, gee, I wish it were this or something else? You know, just think of, dreams are really important to me. So maybe they'll come to you in your dreams. And certainly that's something that you can meditate on right before bed. You can do simple candle magic. You can just do meditation. Again, you are magic, so you don't need stuff. So just meditate. And Miles says that. He says, meditation, soul searching for me, it was sitting next to a fire naked with a bottle of mead. Well, not that I want to mix alcohol and fire, but yeah, I mean, you can certainly, looking into a fire, as long as it doesn't hurt your eyesight, I mean, you can go into a trance. It can be a fire, bonfire. Where I'm from on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, we used to do drum circle bonfires on the full moons. We'd go to the beach, and the full moon, it was as bright as daytime. And, you know, we would dance, would belly dance. Musicians would bring their guitars, their instruments, their whatevers, and we would drum and dance. And it was just, and have a bonfire. And it was absolutely amazing energy. You know, but if you can't do all that, you can certainly go into a trance with, by focusing on a flame of a candle. You could do it, just put a spot on the wall. Like get like a little sticker, like a little round sticker, and put it on the wall 8 to 10 feet away. And you focus on that, and you stare at that spot until eventually you just kind of go through the spot, and your focus becomes bigger, and actually your focus becomes more internal. That focusing on the flame or the spot is just a way to still the mind. It gives the monkey mind something to do. what yoga is. Yoga is a physical discipline for a spiritual path. A lot of the martial arts are physical disciplines for spiritual paths. And so any of this meditation, doing ritual, these are just physical exercises we do to in-tune ourselves with inner being, our inner energy on 3D that is already, you know, ascended and connected to spirit in the 5D, right? So anytime you want to know who are your spirit guides, what do they look like, who or what is your spirit animal, and your spirit animal could be a physical animal like a wolf, like it is for me. It could be a spirit animal. It could be a mythological animal that's like a griffin, you know. So anyway, so there's so much to talk about, y'all. Let's see. Wolf spirit. How do you know what spirit you are? Mead and fire. You know, and mead is cool because mead comes from the honeybees because it's made from honey. And, you know, honey is so good for you. I don't know. I just wanted to talk about honey for a second. But honey is very healthy for you. See, I used to do historical reenactment. So, you know, so I know a lot of people who make beer and make wine and make mead. So you get the homemade stuff. That's good stuff. Let's see. Miles says, I'm Norse pagan. So for us, wolves are seen as a symbol of strength and protectors and guardians. And they are. Wolves are so maligned. They are so maligned. And if these assholes are allowed to open up some of the protections that currently help bears and wolves and elephants, you know, trophy hunters, y'all. See, this is where people who are close to the earth and have a connection to the earth, we cannot be scared to speak up. We cannot be scared. You know, like I said, I'm not doing political stuff because we don't change things at the top. We change things at the grassroots level. And we become that pebble that ripples outward. And if we all do that, that's how we create change. And we create change by voting, because wolves will absolutely be in danger if these protections are lifted, because wolves are amazing. See, the thing about wolves is, like, as a fire spirit, I, you know, people look at fire as bad. You know, oh, fire is the destructive element, or the, you know, fire in its destructive path. I'm like, wait just a damn minute. Let me tell you about fire. Fire is that big ball of fire in the sky that actually allows for life on Earth to exist. And the next time you want a steak, don't put that on the grill. You just eat that sucker raw. Oh, wait, it tastes good grilled. Well, you know what? That comes from fire. You know, that electrical pump you have here that keeps you going, that's fire-based. You know, that your temperature, enough temperature, you die. So fire is very, very important. So I'm so sick of these people, new age woo-woo people who dog fire. You know, fire is amazing. Fire is where creativity is born, spirituality, passion, you know, inspiration. I went to inspiration because I went over that in my spirituality versus religion video. But you know, fire is great. But, you know, it's funny because years ago, I didn't want to be fire. See, this is where you know it resonates with you. I didn't want to be fire because fire is bad, right? So everybody wants to be earth. Everybody wants to be the earth element. Oh, person, I want to be earth. Nobody wants to be air because then you're an airhead, right? You don't want to be water necessarily because then you're just emotional and you can't handle your emotional, hormonal, hysterical feelings. But everybody wants to be earth. So I was about exactly magma. I was arguing with somebody. They said, no, I'm not. He said, oh, he said, you're fire. I said, no, I'm earth. Damn it. Earthy way to deal with shit. Earth, damn it. And she said, our earth, you are burning molten earth. And I thought, that's lava. Okay, I like that. And that's how I got the nickname Lava. I also had the nickname Firebrand. I don't know why. but yeah, it's works for you. You know, if you're a water spirit, that's amazing, because you need somebody, when you do ritual with other people, you need somebody to represent each quarter, right? Somebody to represent nobody wants to be fire except me. So I will gladly be fire when y'all want to do ritual. But anyway, okay. Wolves, yes, tigers. You were the one asking about animal spirits. Does that help you at all about that? The quality of my connection is really sucky. The video looks terrible. Where I am right now, I'm in the mountains. I'm in Pasadena, and so, or near Pasadena, California, and so the connection is really bad. So I apologize for the crappy video. And Christina, oh yes, please, Christina, send me a friend request. Y'all can, oh please. Jan, hey Jan. Jan says, I am friends with her and she is very interesting to listen to. I didn't even pay him to say that. But Miles, yes, fire is a living thing. But you know, that's just it, is that we're all living, changing things. You know, we regenerate new cells every single day. That in the course of 2.5 to 3 years, you have an entirely new body. You have regenerated everything. I think the longest to regenerate is the bone or the bone marrow. That takes like 3 years. But within 3 years, you have an entirely new body. You know, that affects me as a pagan. And like, you know, this continual cycle of life and death and rebirth, and just, you know, that this journey is just one part of the journey. And, you know, that I am in this carbon-based meat suit for this time around. I don't know what meat suit I'm going to have next time around. You know, I try to, because of my training, in the Vedas and Indian culture and Indian spirituality, again, dot, not feather. You know, I have learned so much that was really missing certainly from Christian ideology, and that is kind of here and there in paganism, because paganism has not been delivered intact, you know, from the ancient Irish down to me, you know. So, but there's a lot that I find useful in Tantra, of course. But then the Bhagavad Gita and, you know, the Mahabharata and some of the books of Indian religions. You know, I took 2 Indian religions courses at Tulane several years ago, and they were wonderful. And even though they were talking about religions that come from India, which would be Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, Islam, Hinduism, you know, it really had a lot of information about the indigenous cultures of India. And there is an alternate theory for how we migrated into Europe. It was not just out of Africa, but that when we went out of Africa, we went up and over, and we were in India for a time, and then migrated to Europe. So I find a wealth of information that I find useful and educational by studying the indigenous and original spiritual path of India. Paths, there are several. You know, okay, so let me get back to messages. Holy cow, we're way over an hour. Okay, cool. Thanks, y'all. Let's see. Miles says, I have a degree in fire science. Are you a firefighter? And the more you learn about fire, its beauty and elegance just becomes more evident. It is. It's amazing. It's amazing how transformative it is. Like when you watch a fire, And I don't mean like a fire burning stuff down, you know, like a house, because that's sad. But like if you're watching a bonfire or a campfire, you know, and you see how it moves, and how it's just, and how the wood changes, how the wood itself. And this is why I get so pissed off at these tarot decks that have swords as air and wands as fire. You cannot use a tool like swords and think of it as air. Sword is fire, because the tool, it embodies the element. How the hell can wands or spears embody fire? They're burned up by fire. But metal swords are forged in fire. They're made stronger by fire. Metal comes from the earth. It's heated up, you know, and swords themselves, any kind of dagger or sword, it's metal, comes from the earth, it's melted over fire, right? And so then it becomes a liquid, and then it's allowed to harden, and then it's first layer of hammers, and then it's cooled in water. So it's earth, it's fire, and it's water. The one thing a sword isn't is air. So this is how like paganism really informs my tarot reading. And so, and that's why I've decided I'm going to make my own tarot deck, because I'm really, really annoyed with this. But anyway, and also when you see tarot decks, you know, like wands and swords. Wands and swords are not equal. Swords and spears are equal. Wands and aethams or daggers are equal. But swords, they're not equal tools. Anyway, okay, that's a whole other subject. All right, so ask about tarot. So. Volunteer, firefighter, you're a tech in the all. And you aspire to be a firefighter. Oh, so you're an adrenaline junkie, are you, Miles? I see how that is. Oh, wow, Christina. Christina was a Black Hawk and Chinook helicopter mechanic. I prefer air myself. Okay, cool. So we have fire. Christina's air. Who's going to be earth? Who's going to be water? Although I think Miles is going to fight me for the fire element. Oh, I know, Miles. Look, I know lots of firefighters and paramedics. And people come to fire and paramedic work usually one of two ways. They either really, 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 really want to help people, or they're an adrenaline junkie who really, really, really wants to help people. So, oh, yeah, and you wanted to be in the Air Force. Well, you know, on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, we have Keesler Air Force Base. So if anybody ever came to the Mississippi Gulf Coast, you might have gone to Camp Shelby if you're Army or Marines. You might have gone to the CB base in Gulfport. That's the Navy CB base. And then we have Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi. So I stick to climbing trees to get closer to the sky and the wind. I want a tree house. I want my vocal studio to be a tree house. I'm going to call Pete Nelson and say, dude, come make me a tree house. All right. I don't want to keep you. I mean, I can keep going. We could cut this off, you know. I think, I don't think y'all were planning on being here this long. So to anybody who's not in this club, oh, wow. Let me say this to anybody who's watching this. You're like, what the hell have you been talking about for over an hour? I was asked to be a guest speaker for the Paganism Club at American Public University. So that's what this is. And if you like what you've heard, or you're just confused at this point, leave a comment. Read the comments in the live chat. That's going to have all the comments. The top chat only has a few, and I have no idea how YouTube picks and chooses. I forgot to turn on my big ring light, so I hope you can see me. So, Ik 12 tall. How do you say that? Ik 12 tall? Have to step out, but you enjoyed it. Well, thanks. Come back. You can check out the replay. If y'all have more questions, go ahead and type in more questions. How about we leave this up for, like, we'll just keep going for another 2 or 3 minutes here. And if I don't see any new questions, then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. But if you have any questions you want to ask, Jan, if you have any questions you want to ask, feel free. Jan, you will be happy to know that one of my platforms as a pagan, which is all about the earth and what's natural, I have already discussed intactivism and why it's important for boys and men to have their foreskin. That really is one of my main points of intactivism is intactivism right now. You know, just to get the information out there. But it's really interesting how once you're really in tune with paganism and being pagan, how it informs so much else in your life. And it could be like even what you choose for a job, like Miles, you know, his wolf spirit is leading him to want to be in a profession where he gets to help people and protect people, you know. When will I be televising the pagan seminar? And there's a slash. Well, this is part of it. If there's something specific you want me to talk about, I am about to do some videos on the tarot and the tarot. Tarot is technically more correct, and I'm trying to say tarot more often. And for those who didn't see my new deck earlier, I'll just show you the card again because I love it. It's the sex magic. I would love to do a video on sex magic. I'm about to do a video on some common taboos in sexuality. For those of you who don't know, I am a sexual health advocate. I spent 5 years documenting my sexual awakening, and a big part of that, of course, was Tantra. I do have a Tantra orgasm training program on my website, but I would love to do more videos about paganism, about tarot, about, you know, anything that is positive and productive. And, you know, if it pisses off the GOP, that's even better. So Jan, if there's a specific topic of paganism that you want me to cover, just let me know. And I'm not seeing any new questions, but again, y'all send me a friend request on Facebook if you haven't already. I do have my page as well as my friend request. It would be cool if you would like my page as well. It's Trish Causey Official on Facebook. I am an artist activist, and my whole existence is about arts activism and awakening. And so it really is falling on to people like us to carry this mantle, because the institutions are not going to do it, because the institutions are they're too reliant on the money and the money-based institutions that have gotten them their wealth this far, and they're not going to undo that. Oh, okay. Well, if you want a tarot reading, I can certainly do that. Show some love to my PayPal. Every donation to my PayPal helps keep this going. And my PayPal is paypal.me/Trish Causey. And I'll put that in my description later. But anyway, so, okay, so it looks like we are wrapping up. But I'm about to get some new decks in, some new tarot decks in. So if you're interested in that, let me know. And I am getting more into, like I said earlier, I'm getting more into the whole sex magic thing. I do sex magic, you know, by myself. Do it with a partner yet. But sex magic, if you want a video on that, let me know. Also twin flames and finding your romantic soulmate, that kind of thing. I'm really getting into that because that's one of the paths that I'm on right now personally. So yeah, so I enjoyed meeting y'all here and talking about paganism and all of this. I apologize for the low video quality. But okay, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. And I hope this is what Brian had wanted. But it was really great to meet y'all. Y'all certainly seem to know your stuff, and you're on your way with your personal pagan path. And I am just so grateful. And you know what, Miles? Make sure to friend me on Facebook so that we can, you know, disrupt the status quo with lots of pagan posts. You know what I mean? I am all for upsetting the establishment. Absolutely, and thank you for being here and being with me, and you know, being so patient. I'm prone to rants. So anyway, like I said, I'm a Libra, so I can go off into all sorts of directions about, you know, just about any topic. So, but I will let you go, and thank you all so much for being here with me, and thank you, Jan, and my regular viewers. Thank you so much for hanging in there when maybe you didn't know what the heck was going on with this. And a Gemini, hey, air sign, yeah, Aquarius, Gemini, Libra. And so anyway, so blessed be y'all. Namaste. Y'all take care. And I am going to go ahead and end this somehow. Y'all take care. Bye.